So, you've probably heard of the innovator's dilemma, right? The idea that success can actually be a trap. But what's the solution? Well, that's what we're jumping into. This is all about Clayton Christensen's follow up, the innovator solution. It's the playbook for flipping the script, for going from the one being disrupted to the one doing the disrupting. So, how do you pull it off? Let's get into it. It all kicks off with this really simple but kind of maddening question. Why do so many successful companies fail? I mean, these are the leaders, the ones at the top of their game. They've got all the advantages you could ask for: cash, brilliant people, a loyal customer base. And yet, they just seem to stumble when it's time to find that next big thing. And look, this isn't some rare fluke thing. The scale of this problem is, well, it's huge. We're talking about 90%. Yeah, you heard that right. 90% of publicly traded companies fail to keep up the kind of growth that delivers those above-average returns everyone's looking for. So this isn't about small startups. We're talking about the giants of industry hitting a brick wall again and again. And this pressure? It creates what Christensen calls the unwinnable growth game. Think of it like a corporate treadmill that just keeps getting faster. You're constantly being pushed by the markets to get bigger, hit those numbers quarter after quarter. But just running after growth for growth's sake, that's a total recipe for disaster. And here's the kicker. Chasing growth the wrong way is actually worse than not growing at all. I mean, it's not just about disappointing Wall Street. It's about burning through mountains of cash and absolutely crippling your company's future. The stakes couldn't be higher. So how do you get off this insane treadmill? Well, you don't try to run faster. You just change the game entirely. And the secret weapon for that? Disruption. It's all about finding a new way to compete, a battlefield where your biggest, most powerful competitors actually want to run away instead of putting up a fight. Okay, so to really get what disruption is, we first have to talk about what it isn't, and that's something called sustaining innovation. This is the bread and butter of most successful companies. It's just making good products even better for your best customers. The new smartphone model with a slightly fancier camera? That's sustaining innovation. It's an important game for sure, but it's a game the big, established players are perfectly designed to win. Disruptive innovation, though, that's a whole different animal. It's not about making a better product, it's about making a product that's way more accessible. It's for the customers the big guys are totally ignoring, either the ones at the very bottom of the market or, and this is key, people who aren't even customers at all yet. This is where the little guy, the new entrant, has a fighting chance. So you can really see the two battlefields laid out here. On one side, you've got sustaining innovation. That's a head-to-head brawl for the most profitable customers. The big companies love this fight. But on the other side, you've got disruptive innovation. That's more like a sneak attack. You target the forgotten customers with something simpler, cheaper. The incumbents just look down at that and think, there's no money there, who cares? And they ignore it, right up until it's way too late. And this whole disruptive strategy really breaks down into two main paths you can take. First, there's what's called new market disruption. This is where you're basically competing against nothing. You're creating a market where one didn't exist before by making something affordable and accessible to people who were previously shut out. Think about the very first personal computers. Then you've got low-end disruption. This is where you go after the bottom of an existing market. You offer a good enough product to customers who are just plain tired of paying for a bunch of fancy features they don't need or use. Okay, so if disruption is the big secret, where the heck do you find these opportunities? Well, the answer requires a massive shift in how you think. You have to stop focusing on the customer, their demographics, their personality, and start obsessing over the job they're trying to get done. I mean, think about it like this. That cup of coffee you had this morning, what job did you actually hire it to do? Seriously, was the job wake me up? Or was it keep me company on a long, boring drive? Or maybe give me a good excuse to step away from my desk for 10 minutes? See? The coffee is just the tool. The job is the real reason you bought it. And that right there is the absolute core of this idea. It means you stop carving up your market by age or income or where people live. Instead, you slice it by the circumstance people find themselves in. Because when you understand the circumstance, you finally understand the real job that needs to be done. The most famous example of this, of course, is the milkshake story. So, a fast food chain wants to sell more milkshakes. They do all the usual stuff. Focus groups on flavor, thickness, and they get nowhere. Then they just go and watch people. And they notice something weird. Almost half their milkshakes are sold before 9 in the morning to people who are all by themselves and just drive off. It turns out the job wasn't, I need a sweet treat. The job was, my commute is long and boring, and I need something that'll last the whole ride and keep me engaged. Suddenly, their real competition wasn't other milkshakes. It was bagels, bananas, donuts. So, what's the takeaway? When you're out there hunting for that next big disruptive idea, look for the non-consumers. Find the people who are struggling to get a job done, but the current solutions are just too expensive or way too complicated. That frustration, that's your golden opportunity. That's your way in. But here's the thing. Spotting that job to be done is really only half the battle. Because the brutal honest truth is that most big successful companies are perfectly designed to crush these kinds of fragile new ideas. Their immune system attacks them. That's why you can't just have a great idea. You have to build a special disruption engine, a protected space, to actually bring it to life. And to see why that happens, you can use this handy tool called the RPV framework. R is for resources. That's the easy stuff, your people, your money, your technology. But the real killers are P and V, processes and values. Processes are just the way we do things around here. And values are all about what gets rewarded, what the company prioritizes. So imagine your company's core value is hitting a 40% profit margin. Well, you could bring them the most amazing disruptive idea in the world, but if it only makes 10% margins at first, it's dead on arrival. The company is literally structurally incapable of pursuing it, even if it's the future. And that right there is the absolute heart of the innovator's dilemma. A company's greatest strengths, those super efficient processes and those profit-focused values that made them successful in the first place, they become crippling disabilities when a new disruptive opportunity comes along. It's like their strength becomes their weakness. They can't pivot, even when they see the writing on the wall. Now, what about the fuel for this disruption engine? The money. It turns out not all money is created equal. There's good money and there's bad money. Good money is patient for growth but impatient for profit. It's like, hey, I don't need you to be huge overnight, but I do need to see that this thing can actually make $1. It lets the idea breathe. Bad money is the opposite. It's impatient for growth. It demands you get huge right now, which forces you to go after the big mainstream markets, where you'll get absolutely steamrolled by the very incumbents you were trying to sneak past. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. How do you take all this theory and actually do something with it? How do you find your innovator solution? All right, here's your toolkit, your checklist for becoming a disruptor. Number 1, change your focus. Stop staring at customer profiles and start hunting for that job to be done. Number 2, pick your fight carefully. Go after the non-consumers or the low end of a market. Go where the big guys aren't. Number 3, build the right team. This means a separate group with its own rules, its own processes, its own values that are tailor-made for this specific mission. And finally, number 4, get the right fuel. Find that good money, be patient for growth, but impatient for profit. And that really brings us to the final, most important question, the one for you. Because this isn't just theory for giant corporations. These ideas apply everywhere. So I want you to look around, at your own job, in your own industry, maybe even in your own day-to-day life. What's that one frustrating, overlooked job that everyone complains about that's just sitting there, waiting for someone to finally come up with a solution?